But my second passion is actually India. And I'd always felt like this was a market that never had realized its full potential. And I think in the conversations with Rosanna on this book, and I told him that today, I said, you know, I hope your book reignites this passion for people to make India it's right, if you will, to have a net export market to the healthcare world. And I say that not because it's something that is just a nice concept. It's because it really could happen and should happen. I mean, the market, domestic market is still a long ways away from being fully tapped. The engineering and talent here is second to none. So the raw materials for creating a domestic market that could lead the global revolution. But the third element, I think, that is still fascinating to me, it's the market is like Darwin's waiting room. You have to be good on every single facet or you don't win in this market. You have to be the best at its quality, at its cost position, and its usability. And I think that's a wonderful place to incubate new ideas. And yet we're kind of stuck between this replication, what the Western world does, versus what I think, just take a clean sheet of paper out and try to innovate for the specific needs of markets like this. And I think that scarcity of funding and scarcity of skills and scarcity of infrastructure isn't a bad thing when it comes to the innovation mindset. And I think that's where that frugalness of the system actually could be one of the most potentially powerful drivers of new ideas that not only serve this market, but by the way, every market in the world wants to reduce its healthcare spend. But yet we still kind of struggle with this model. So I hope part of our discussion today is your thoughts on that. And I think our competition is not internal. I think it's with for the multinational companies, it's with the global headquarters who, you know, there's lots of competition for the funding. So this how do we think about the positioning of India as a place for which is sitting on perhaps one of the best opportunities for multinationals as well.
Thank you.
So Prasanna, thank you very much for writing that book, putting all the energy in your.
So let me get back to Terry's point, is that let's conclude on what is it that we want to go out of this room with as an action plan.
Yeah, sure.
So duty, it could be one, I think.
Yeah,
Duty. We
no,
should say
more
that
than duty.
how can we have a more local products from India?
Okay, but
That's the one subject.
okay, the next one would be the domestic manufacturing, right?
That is one. And second, I would also suggest that one of the challenges of local producers today is that they are not able to break the barrier of global access. The amount of OEM purchase and all those things, they are not taking off in the quantity which ought to take off for Indian companies.
So now there's a challenge there. I mean, exactly we know what the reason is.
Okay, so I think a couple of
very perfect
action plans, if we can have one is that how to increase the local manufacture in India.
And how to take it out.
Second is that how to create a global market, or what are the barriers which have been there can be overcome in the globe, create a global market. If these two action, and third, of course, we already talked, is that the advocacy with the government on 2 or 3 issues which will open up I think first.
Another challenge which we as MedTech industry is facing today.
Well, I think whatever in the end we come up with, because I think it's good to create this list, is we have to think about 2 things. One is our government hat on and patient hat on, which is whatever we choose to do, can it lower the cost of care, the unit economics of care, right? Should be our, I think, overriding principle, because that'll resonate then with the people outside this room, right? The other should be
how our ability as a country for us to go and take this treatment closer. Because
that was my second point, which is one priority is, can we lower?
And from 2020, they kind of put up embargo that any medical devices using these categories of electronic and IT products, when brought in independently into the country for the maintenance of the installed base, they need to be registered with BIS by their respective OEMs. Now, quite a lot of OEMs who are supplying these kind of items specifically for our medical devices or equipment, they are not encouraged enough to come and register with BIS because they don't have those kind of volumes in the business. Now, we as organizations, as companies, now have the responsibility to kind of get it registered with BIS, which is a huge challenge because
And more costs.
and more cost. Absolutely. Similarly, Ministry of Environment in their e-waste rule management 2022 was the first time they included the whole, they covered the medical device industry under this ambit of e-waste management rules. Now we are expected to provide the average life of the equipment to Central Pollution Control Board, which is the implementing agency. They would then ask data based on the life of the equipment we declare in retrospect. And from 1st of April, these are applicable supposedly. And then we would be expected to provide them a certificate confirming that 60% of what we sold, let's say 10 years back, would be disposed of as e-waste under the guidelines of e-waste rules. No disposal agency, any agency which has been hired by Minister of Environment for disposing of as e-waste has the infrastructure to, let's say, pick up even a basic X-ray unit and dispose it of as e-waste.
Yeah.
We don't have a precedence in the country.
Ask Sunil Kurana to create a small team. We will also give him all the support. Let him meet. I can also go along with him to Delhi. You please tell what exactly you want and we will make a case and come back. If it happens, it happens. If it doesn't happen, it won't be worse than before.
Wonderful. What, Sudhir?
So I think we
Okay.
will discuss this. And
Both of you talk and maybe you should involve Kala. She also
Okay,
has a number of ideas.
Kala is coming from a very different background. She is in a very high-tech technology position and
she can sponsor.
No, but but let us see, because
for G20. We just had one meeting
Manipal.
in Manipal, and we will organize 2 others. One could be about this topic because Brazil,
Great suggestion, yeah.
Very good lobbying place.
Brazil and South Africa will be the next ones, and this troika is now starting. And in June, we would like to hand over some documents to the government what Brazil and South Africa should work on. They have the same problem as India has. So one has a chance for 3 years to work on a topic.
South Africa expert.
Yeah. So
My son-in-law is South African and I've been there many times.
and happy to do
No, that's a great
something
suggestion. I
for this,
appreciate
because
that.
we now
Yeah.
are listed. We
Yeah.
will. Second one is he made this health literacy idea. We could, of course, start let's say digital health literacy survey for India to monitor this just as an offer. Yeah. Then what the World Economic Forum is doing, they have the risk report. Once a year, they ask a panel and then they have to rate risks, and then they put it together, and very well known. In India, we do not have any report that comes out annually about how experts see the future of health and healthcare business in India. So not very easy. It's manageable to roll this out, so that you could align with the bigger trends and not the usual suspect. Don't get me wrong, cardiovascular disease is a problem, cancer is a problem. No, what is coming really up? And those 3 things could be. And the 4th one, we started a center for regulatory sciences, not regulatory affairs. Regulatory affairs is the application of it, but there is no one thinking about new ways how to get less government and more governance. And we discussed this several times. Oh, government has to do this and here. And we have a center at the school for regulatory sciences already. And I could bring up that we start with the topic that is close to here, what kind of methods and new ideas there might be to have a good regulatory framework for medical, not only medical devices, but there's just this new law on medical devices, what was claimed internationally as quite progressive. So it's more about how it is.
Or much wise in the PLI has come. I am a large company, but still I will get a zero benefit on PLI entirely. Still I'm setting up because limits are kept, which I will never be able to succeed. 60 crore rupees on each line item. You have to grow incremental year on year. How can you do that? If I'm business doing a cardiology at 40 crores, suddenly I can't make it 100 crore by doing that. So no, those are not understood. I'm not saying that it is fault of government. The way it has been educated to government bodies to create those PLIs needs to be again relocated. So this is just a question of how you evolve.
The unit economics. The second is, can we expand access to care, right? If we can hit both of those with one of these targets, then, I think we're.
So you're actually limiting by policy. If the policy is changed, then you can actually expand and go take this treatment closer to the patient.
Colin, what's your idea? What would you add to the list?
See, the first thing, especially from a Philips perspective, okay, if I listen to all these things, I've been working with Mr. Prasanna also on looking at how to change the mindset for local manufacturing and also some partnerships. Okay, because until now, Philips has been very focused on the west side of the affairs, right? And also there is a large pressure for bringing on the cost. And with the new setup, there are leadership changes which is happening across Philips. I've been able to convince the strategy officer that he needs to look at India much more. And we are not the first ones. GE has done it about 2 decades back. So how can we leverage that? That is one portion of it.
That X-ray cannot be imported less than 15% duty. Now, one product they've launched it, whereas it's less than 5% of X-rays are being imported from outside.
So now there's a catch. This is a pain point. This is an important point. This started off as a phased manufacturing plan of the government of India in 2021, where they came up that basic X-ray units, we will increase duties up to so and so % in next 3 years. Unfortunately, when that policy was implemented, the HSM code which they covered under that scheme also covered high-end X-ray emitting units, including a linear accelerator.
Any X-ray generating system then?
Yeah.
For sure. And lowering the cost.
Absolutely lowering the cost, because once the volumes increase, the cost will automatically come down. I mean, our biggest problem in India, I mean, to your point also, you said, why are we not to that 50 billion or whatever billion we are? And we always say we are behind in context of the number of people, which is necessarily the under penetration. I mean, IVD, we do 1.1 tests per person per year. By 2027, we'll become 2.1 tests. Brazil today is more than 5 tests. Scans, if you take, we do 36 tests per 1,000 people. Brazil is already, I mean, I'm not taking the examples of US, Australia purposefully. So that penetration has a lot to do with digitalization, because the most under penetration is in non-metros. That means the 70% of India. And for there, this connection through data will do the trick.
Yeah.
The other thing is PPP. We have not touched that topic, but I think that should be upon the agenda. If we were to levy the, let's say, custom duty, what will happen? Do you think that the US and Europe will sit quiet on this and they will not retaliate on the duty front? They have already done that. We are not sustained. If you take the example of genomics. Now, if we talk of the modalities like biochemistry, hematology, sure, go for the kill. And that is our responsibility, even as whether Indian company or as MNC.
Or you could flip it around and make an incentive for someone to come and stand something up.
China, May 2021, banned 73 medical equipments that cannot be imported. China did that. So products which are not very high-end, let's say, we have completely banned. You can't even bring it.
But I think the general principle exists, which is take a look at these things that create either incentives or disincentives for somebody to build
Balance it out.
the localization.
Balance it out. Same as for the export also. Export also is exactly the similar approach which we have to follow.
Definitely very important. Second, I'm
When
looking
you
at
say that, what do you mean? The material cost?
material cost,
Okay.
everything all put together, and finally keeping the price at a certain level, which the market will accept.
What
Second
needs
is-
to change to make the material cost lower? In your mind, I mean,
One is that locally, if we can create an ancillary plants, then supply.
So I'll just add here.
Yeah.
When we are talking of medical equipment is kept into 3 buckets. One is a consumable, no electronics components there. Second is implants. And third is medical devices, which are electronics. In electronics medical devices, nearly 70% of BOM, bill of material, comes from the electronics components. On an average. 70%. China is 15-20 years ahead of us. They make their own medical device component, electronics component. That's how the TV and everything is very cheap. Now look at when I source from Murata or Texas Instrument or Nexperia and all that. These are the companies we source, and cost of components is generally 2x. So you cannot easily compete. When you make it here,
It's 5x.
I'm still very good to say that 2x, you cannot compete. And that is where I say that products which you want to make in India, you must raise the bar of entry by raising.
So one thing is definitely we have to know.
so local supply chain.
Local supply chain is must for
Yeah.
electronics. Till then, you can focus a lot on the consumable.
Second is the total cost of ownership. If you see from a customer perspective. Now today I come from a service background. And what I feel that every day my cost of operations, cost of supporting the field is going up. So how do we manage that? One way you have to look into where you have to, cost of ownership has to come down. At the other hand, my service cost is going up, everything. So how do we manage that? So definitely we have to look from going to a reactive service to a proactive service, remote maintenance, plus you have to build up some kind of an intelligence within the system so that it starts self-diagnostics or customer initiated kind of thing where you don't have to send an engineer. So these kind of thing which we have to embed into the system.
I visited Life Science discussing things, and then suddenly people came in with consumables from the US. And I said, oh, for the sequencer, yes, it only accepts this. Yeah, okay, I understand. The company wants that you only. India pays 3 times the same amount in dollars as in the US, and by purchasing power, 3 times the amount. And I looked at the machine and said, oh, the machine cannot be the problem. They said, no, the software is what it makes.
Well, and the tax and duty structure
Yeah,
for importing something.
And what really is an issue is some things you cannot produce. It seems that you cannot produce them at the moment for those lower costs. So why do we also have to pay tax on those things that you cannot produce here?
Well, I made a pitch once to the government. I said, instead of charging all of us this duty to import componentry, take that same money and incentivize people to set up local manufacturing, local supply chain.
Correct.
You'll pay yourself back in 10 years.
That's exactly we keep demanding. Okay.
And the math works.
I'm giving a little bit of bigger picture of with my limited understanding and experience. I just want to give how patients are there in India. If you look at 1990 to now, the GDP has moved from nearly $370 to $2,200. Now, this is not
GDP per capita.
per capita income has moved from 370, 380 to nearly $2,100, $2,200. Now, this is not important to only understand in dollars. You should see the currency at that time was 20 rupees and now it is 80 rupees.
Yeah.
So we are talking of 8,000 rupees to 1.72 lakhs rupees. That's the variation which has happened. But if you look at the cost at those days, imagine MRI, people used to charge 5,000 rupees. Today also it's about 7,000-8,000 rupees.
Yeah.
So it's not much a change. Ideally, if you ask me, we have to have a differential charges. I still believe people who can make payment should pay 20,000. People who should get free, even at diagnostic center, some kind of method. Because that is the way they will be motivated. They are not motivated because they go for a 15 crore machine. And ultimately they keep struggling, and then, not everybody is the top of the name. And the people who are putting it are really struggling.
JSV, what did,
About availability of people, which is another thing.
say again?
Talent.
You want the people available in tier 2, tier 3 cities, because that is where you want to take treatment to. And that is something which is not fully addressed.
Do you mean medical oncologist?
Not oncologists, even the paramedics. not available. And if you talk about radiotherapy, then there is some specialized field called medical statistics, and that is not available very common. So however much we want to take these equipment close to
There's nobody there to run it.
it wouldn't be possible in quite some time.
I've been gone for 4 years, but the Health Sector Skills Council, is that still not?
There is
No, that's
a
not
lot of
existing
scope.
now.
No, that is not applicable. What is applicable is something like this: you roll out more courses in more places across the country, where more and more people can actually become eligible to qualify to run this.
We are trying to work with National Medical Council also on this subject, especially from a radiation oncologist point of view, where we are requesting them that any medical college which is offering postgraduate courses in either surgical/medical oncology, then radiotherapy program should be mandated for them.
For example, the manpower, the skilling. BCG has come out with a report in 2023. It has made some recommendations to the ministry. There are some very glaring facts even in that report as well as recommendations.
Okay.
So, I mean, we should use that. And what you're saying is absolutely right. In that report, it says 65% of the employers say that there is a mismatch between the healthcare professionals, that they need the skill and when they did the survey with the people who are the allied healthcare professionals, 50% of them said that I'm very unhappy. So both sides are pretty unhappy. But coming back, so one is this digitalization, Atmanirbhar Bharat, that ABDM, ABHA. Now all the healthcare service providers are currently grappling with who should be the first one to switch on to this requirement of ABHA, and it is on cloud. So the model has already come.
What is ABHA?
ABHA, that's the ID on which the patient records have to go. And all the healthcare service providers have been instructed that you have to get started. Now, the regulation does not have a penalty as such as of now, as of this point in time. In fact, to the contrary, in 2022, there is a guideline which is saying you will get an incentive. And the incentive is not small, it goes as much as to 4 crore, 40 million INR for a service provider. They are just puzzled. And they are saying, in industry firms, they are saying, can someone help us understand what does this 5-pager guideline mean? So on that digitalization, I think if we are trying to do something, and this will go in that direction of penetration.
At this point in time, what is the language, which is very important? Guess what? It's English. That means, are you able to articulate your problem in a right way so that you can have all this programming things to work for us?
Generative AI.
Generative AI, how can you make it work for us? And how can you upskill the talent? And then how can you join hands with the ecosystem? This is where I talked about academia, right? Because right now, if you look at our academics, we have talked about it. Okay, it's very, very traditional, right? How can you go and influence some of this academia to really look at what is very, very important? We are still in 1940s when it comes to some of the subjects. Yeah, world has progressed. So how can you keep track of that? And how can you continuously upskill the talent within India is extremely important. Because like it or not, one is device side. The other thing is software is going to become much more prevalent going forward. So this is one area.
Software and data sciences.
Yes, absolutely. When I say it is about the digital leadership, let me put it that way, because it will include all the different aspects, right? AI, ML, and then many other things. So that is something that we really need to look at from an India perspective to not only help the country, but also make India as a important place other than San Francisco. At this point in time, what is the language, which is very important? Guess what? It's English. That means
you are able to help your own self. Unless we produce excellent manpower in our industry, train our teachers there, who are the teachers who are teaching them, bring them to, yesterday I was with a software person, he said that he was getting good engineers from a college, but writing a code, but clean code was not written. The mistakes were 84%. Once they brought their teacher there and trained him for 1 year in the industry, it has gone down that 84% codes were correct. So he said that Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, which is old saying. So that way, if we train those teachers in a proper way and then they teach, so that kind of, unless we will be talking here for after 20 years also. And Mr. Prasanna has also told us that he started at 25 years back, this kind of a revolution, but nothing has come out of $1 billion that you have written in your notes. I was reading them very carefully. So again, we'll be talking same thing. Unless we have the own strength, we our own young people will develop something, then only these companies will come. Anybody wants to have money. Very frankly speaking, GE, Siemens, Philips, QG, everybody wants to earn money from. But unless you develop here, our people will develop here, they will not technology. And one thing which I've read in your book very clearly, you said that once you were trying to get the SIAMs here, but the people revolted in that country that they don't want to pass that the SIAM there at that point in time. It was a revelation to me. We were not knowing it. After reading this book only we could come to know. So nobody would like to give us a technology. Unless you don't develop yourself, why would anybody help me?
Yeah.
I have to help myself first. My own people have to develop their own technologies to see that what they can do best. And then other companies will also come. And I think you have started that thing, at least now. I think we have to work on our own people, and our own development has to be done by, rather than depending upon somebody else. Even depending, the government definitely can help us in a big way in that, by providing funding to these youngsters, even the engineering colleges
So
and
it's
other
both,
things.
it's both the R and the D,
Yeah,
right?
R&D.
I think that's another problem in the country. There's more D than there is any R.
Yes.
And to become a true flourishing domestic MedTech company, you need to have the R side as well.
Yeah.
Yes, digital.
For ChatGPT and the like.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Well, and I think I keep thinking there's a way to use this data and analytics to fundamentally change the way healthcare gets done. And in India, since you don't have a lot to unwind, you could just use this, right? Whereas in the US, they've got all this digitization, or in Europe, they've got all this digitization. So asking them to do it a completely different way, they go, no, I spent billions of dollars on IT. Why would I change it? But
So, yeah, adding to that, how can we make our hospitals much more, what do you say, outcome focused in terms of showing them the data? How is their whole enterprise working itself? I don't know if many of them have, even the Apollos and then Manipal, I don't know how much they know what is happening in their system.
I
Right, so,
also
yeah.
have a question to you.
maybe just before you do that, can we grab some ideas from this side of the room and then we'll.
If I can just ask her, related to what she has said. The digital aspect, there is a lot of efforts which are being made by under the Ayushman Bharat digital mission, led by NHA only.
Yes.
I mean, and they are trying to bring in the private industry, the private sector, to bring in more ideas and to kind of, collaborate with their thought process so that they can serve the larger population of this country.
Correct.
So what is your opinion? They want them to be sandboxed and all that stuff. So,
Correct.
I mean, of course, there is some attempt of engaging with them from a
Yeah.
technical point of view.
Yeah.
But do you think some initiative can be taken from this group point of view in engaging with them on that
Yes.
aspect?
Yes, we did do from the digital health, this one we went back and then gave them, each one of us have given
Yeah,
feedback to that, right?
Absolutely.
And Pramod Verma, who is the architect, is moving from UPI to DPI, right?
Yeah.
Now, if we can influence him, because there is a closed door to this one where some of my people are going there, if we can influence that AI thought process and then how to have an open kind of connect with those things, I think it can move forward. And if you look at the ministers, be it Piyush Goyal or Rajesh Chandrasekhar, they are open to some of these things. Yeah. Pramod Verma, yes.
Is very important.
Yeah, he's yeah. So if we can connect with him,
Should point out.
yeah. If we can connect with him and then also understand how are these bodies of CII, NASCOM, everybody are adding value.
1,000 points of light.
Absolutely. So if we can- again, it shouldn't be carpet bombing. It should be a fewer, bigger, better. That's what I give to Debjani also. Look at one or two things. So if we can select that one or two things which can influence us,
I think
to
that's
get our things together.
Mr. Prasanna was there and you are also there during our session that we did. One thing we firmly believe is, as much as Mr. Prasanna keeps saying that it's heavy lifting, how will we come together? How different companies, because one company, a smaller company, not the, even a large MNC doesn't take the ownership to do other things like that. It's impossible for smaller companies like us to be doing this. The thought process of those panel discussions that we put together was to bring an ecosystem and then to impact. affordable access. The whole
Yeah.
idea is how do we impact affordability and access by getting a set of people. So now we can keep having meetings and discussions, but can we truly implement this in a few places? And then that's why I requested Mr.
Like
Prasanna
proof
to-
or, yeah.
Yeah.
So the
This
list-
can be an
so-
action item.
So all the list of things topically, I get the mechanism you're speaking about, but you know this industry very well. What would be your top of mind in terms of increasing the domestic output, if you will, for medical technologies?
From a manufacturing perspective or?
Yeah. Design and manufacturing, I think, right? That's what we mean both, yeah.
I think we covered everything. No,
I know, but we're not gonna do everything, right? We're gonna pick one of these to start. You know this very well. What would you have chosen off this list?
Certainly, my priority would be for those what we have in capability to be able to impact, the cost.
The cost.
Impact cost. We should not take things which is, too very, what do you call?
Esoteric.
Yeah. So it just be where we really can impact. Just pick those, work on those, and then, that's where I think we'll have. And of course, to this point, to everything that we do here, can we add a layer of, today, of course, data transfer from any device is possible. So now can we look at that as one of the key aspects and also build in an ability to be able to willing to share and transfer to
Interoperability of
Yeah,
these
yeah,
machines
yeah,
into
yeah.
this whatever ABBA
Yeah.
system.
Like the rope band?
That's what I was thinking, like the rock band.
Not ABBA.
Mamma Mia.
BHA. Oh.
Oh,
Oh,
Sorry,
APHA, not ABBA.
It's not the dancing.
Oh.
queen.
okay.
Mamma Mia.
Mamma mia, yeah.
So BHA, care scenarios, like all these categories, and go for the bigger cost
Impact.
elements. And then say, okay, based on that, if we could move that 10%, that would equate to some meaningful number. As if I was the, government and say,